Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to give you guys an update on my experience with the Motorola Lapdock 500 Pro. So what you're looking at here is essentially ice cream sandwich, because after all, the Webtop experience, since I updated you guys last, has vastly changed. It's now essentially an ICS tablet, except of course no touchscreen here. You're looking at a 14-inch display with a full-size keyboard, trackpad, or I should say touchpad, excuse me, with a left and right click. And, it is a full-size touchpad. I'm not going to show that to you guys now. If you want to look at hardware, really jump back to my videos that I covered in the past, because what I'm focusing on here today is really just how the experience has changed, because I've been using it for a while. And I wanted to give you guys an update as to whether or not this change in the Webtop environment is, frankly, a good one for users, especially prospective buyers that are considering picking up this laptop, because there haven't been any sales on it since I think around March, where Verizon did offer it at a really good price, and it's still running around 300, if not more, 350, pretty much everywhere, and for good reason. It's the most innovative companion device, at least in the last, well, in history, but certainly still to this day, at least until the pad phone launches and other concept devices that really haven't come to fruition yet. So basically what you're looking at here, 14-inch display, as I mentioned, keyboard, touchpad, to completely give you a traditional laptop experience, even a front-facing camera which mirrors the imaging chip in your phone. As you can see, I've got the Razer Max back there tethered to the phone, and basically it's pretty much universally compatible with any Motorola handset that's been released in the last couple quarters, is what I'll say. But of course, go online to check for compatibility. I can't give you guys an all-in-one answer here. It's not a one-size-fit-all, but that is what the concept is, because it is a universal plug that basically just has a micro USB and micro HDMI power adapter, and by plugging that in, you drive the experience that you guys see here. So you've got multi-touch for the web environment, for swiping in between different pages here, and basically the experience is definitely better than what the last Webtop version had to offer. Would I say that it's phenomenal? No. This is still a piece of hardware that, in my opinion, in its infancy. If you're familiar with the previous generations of Lapdock, you know how far it has really come. I mean, this Lapdock not only has, as I mentioned before, largest screen, largest form factor, but also adds multiple USB ports, Ethernet, VGA out, and a full-size SD card slot. So really unprecedented, nothing like it, as I mentioned before, and it's just an impressive piece of kit that was just pushed above and beyond once it got this ICS update. And as I've mentioned, I've spent several months with it. Chrome beta, still not really optimized for it, understandably, but the traditional browser is. And I can tell you guys right now, it just runs really well. Everything is smooth, everything is fast. If you want to use this as an everyday device, for business or for personal use, you're going to be really pleased, especially over the LTE connection that you have with your respective phone, if you're with Verizon Wireless at least. And that's because the speed is phenomenal. And overall, as I've shown in previous videos, the performance is just solid as a rock. So I can't imagine how much better it's going to get once they actually get an official build of ICS out there. As far as I know, it is launching imminently. So even though Motorola has been dragging us around a little bit, I'll just chalk that up to growing pains with the merger with Google. But the fact remains that the Lapdock, at least conceptually, is still a great product. Obviously, if you're looking at this and saying, why would I buy this over a traditional laptop, my answer to that would be that this is obviously a niche product that people are going to be interested in who don't want to carry a laptop as well as a tablet, because obviously with the way specs are leaning with high-end phones these days, especially as Motorola ups their lineup with the Razer HD, you're going to see phones that will continuously basically blur the line between tablet and phone performance. Right now, if you wanted to use something like the Transformer Prime, where you get a very similar experience, but obviously at least still have that touchscreen capability, which is missing here. And, some users won't like that, and that's why obviously this won't be a unit for them. The fact remains, you can't take your calls over the Prime. That's something, text messaging, yes, you can use Google Voice, But there are limitations, obviously. You're going to need another device, and the whole idea here is to bring it all into one place. Even handling calls, you've got the utility of Bluetooth, obviously, with your phone, so you can use a headset. It also has a headphone jack, so you can, take a call, something the previous gen of lapdocs, didn't have. So there are just critical features that polish this out, including the actual Android buttons that are on screen. But the only things I can really give you guys in terms of critiques where I can tell that more polish is necessary is that in the previous version of the Webtop, as I mentioned in one of my past reviews of this product, as I get a notification there, some spam from Living Social, the point is that in that previous build, where you did have more of a desktop environment, but it was much more sluggish, certainly not as much of a pleasure to use, but completely different in terms of the approach. The one thing that you did get quick access to were a lot of the features for the actual laptop, which now instead you have to go into the settings of ICS, the traditional route that you would to adjust pretty much anything in the OS on your device. So not a big deal, but something where it's missing the convenience. As I mentioned, you do still have the battery meters here, access to the radio time, of course your notifications and keyboard, but it would be nice to see the trackpad. I mean, that really is just something so simple. Maybe that will be part of the official build. I'm not sure why it's not there. You really shouldn't have to dive into settings to get to that. But really a very minor critique of that. As far as video playback, for those of you wondering, YouTube is great. Also, I'll tell you that if you plan on using something like Netflix, streaming works perfectly, no problems whatsoever. I haven't tested it with VGA out, haven't had the need, but it does all work perfectly well. That much I can tell you. Have used it and you will not be disappointed. And I think that's another area where this is really appealing. Wi-Fi certainly isn't everywhere, and if you're like me and you've got unlimited data, what better solution for on-the-go use than to be able to hook up your phone where you don't have that internet connection but do have a solid LTE or even 3G data signal and be able to watch video. Obviously that LTE connection is going to give you much higher quality, and that really just allows you to push the limit of the processor. On that note, I will tell you guys that with the Razer, even though it is a dual-core chip and very similar to what's found in pretty much the even current iPad right now, it's not too far off in terms of performance, at least from an architectural standpoint and general performance. I won't say in terms of graphics, of course. The only problem there is that it still cannot handle video the same way a quad-core chip can. And a lot of the new dual cores, like the S4, the Qualcomm chip that's going to be in the Samsung Galaxy S3, which I'll be reviewing for you guys soon. And that's where dual core chips are changing this year, more power efficient and just a little bit better in terms of benchmarking, not on the graphics side like the quad core processors that are out there, but at least on the traditional performance, they are certainly pushing their boundaries. So right now, at least my Razer can't handle 1080p the same way my at least Tegra 3 driven devices can. But this bodes really well for at least a phone like the Razer HD. I imagine because that will have the Qualcomm S4 and definitely will be compatible with this, and probably will even have its own new laptop, I imagine, considering this is a 7-month-old product basically now. And, at least in terms of most mobile products, 7 months is starting to get a little gray. So it'll be interesting to see what else gets launched. But what I really wanted to get around beyond, whether or not this is right for you, as I mentioned before, really comes down to what you're trying to get out of it. So mobile video, access to all of your calls, contacts, messaging, all in one place, really, so that you don't need an extra device. And then obviously extending the battery life of your phone, because the phone is going to be charged by this lapdock, like all of the Moto lapdocks, since it does have an internal battery. So that's going to, stretch your computing capabilities. In my case, because the Razer does have that built-in battery, certainly a bonus. But if you have something like the Bionic, a phone that doesn't have, an internalized battery, then clearly it's, it'll just benefit you further, frankly. But, having an internal battery like the Razer, certainly it's a nice thing to be able to stretch it a bit with this laptop and really just push the capabilities of the device to a computing level. Now, for those of you out there who did want the desktop experience, yeah, it's gone. I don't know what to tell you, except for that the clear future, I think, for the Lapdock right now with the merger. Even though Google's saying they're going to stay hands-off, I think it's fairly obvious that they've, obviously positioned their own CEO now. Direction will change, and I see the Lapdock really being able to take over the Chromebook segment to a degree, because it's really easy, obviously, with a great high-end Android phone to be able to plug it into a device like this that Google has designed rather than Motorola, obviously now one and the same, and just creating a device like this maybe that once you hook up your phone drives, the Chrome operating system rather than simply defaulting to something like ICS. But there's no question right now, if you're thinking about picking one of these up, I think you'll be very pleased with it, especially if you do get it at some sort of sale price, even though they are right now out of stock directly through Verizon Wireless. So, you'll have to look to other retailers currently, but the fact that they are out of stock does probably point to, a launch of something new, in my opinion, because after all, this was a successful Lapdock, unlike many of the previous generations, like the original ones for the Bionic and Atrix, which were made specifically only to fit a single phone, kind of a dead-end product in that, it couldn't mature with your next handset. A device like this, though, far more staying power, and I can tell you guys right now, it really does turn your phone into a complete computing experience, but it's not a Windows machine, so don't confuse it for that. It will, though, give those of you who maybe don't want to jump out there and buy a tablet, everything short of the touchscreen experience and then some, because really, frankly, once you hook up a mouse to this, I'm not going to endorse the touchpad, but once you do hook up a mouse, the performance on this device really can't be beat overall, and will only get better as we get better phones on the market. Sorry to leave this disgusting news on the screen while giving you guys this review, but let me go, I'll jump back to Engadget again, just so, for load times. And again, all over LTE. I am in a strong market, though, here in the New York City area, so I can't give enough praise for this product. Anyone who's watched my previous videos knows that I really do appreciate when I see a company go out there and try to make companion products that make sense and that just aren't more plastic, more junk. And Motorola has done a fine job of that, and hopefully Google will take it to the next level, like I said, through something of maybe, Chrome OS landing it on here rather than looking at ICS. But in many ways, again, the give and take between ICS and the former version of Webtop, which was that Linux-based, Mozilla Firefox experience that did represent more of a desktop, I think, the trade-offs are definitely in the favor of the user at the end of the day, because performance and just functionality running ICS is also going to future-proof you, obviously, as more and more programs, I mean, even HBO Go, the Time Warner app, all becoming, ICS-driven services. I mean, that's another one I've used with this. The Time Warner cable app, another great one to use. So, really, wholehearted endorsement on this. If you're thinking about it, don't worry, you're going to love it. I promise you that. Just remember, the one thing I will tell you again is that you're going to probably need to use a mouse. But if you're looking to replace a netbook or a tablet and really don't care about a touch screen and love the fact that you're getting the entire, all of your media and entertainment in one spot, especially like if you're me and you have a 64 gig, micro SD card, and then you could throw, another 64 gig card into the SD card slot and even push it to, hooking up an external hard drive. This thing really does represent probably the best tablet experience, lacking a touchscreen and, of course, the processing power, at least, that the Tegra 3 has to offer right now. So a big endorsement from a product that really doesn't get enough praise. I hope you guys enjoyed, got information out of this, and just again, reiteration, ICS and Webtop 3.0 looking great. Can't wait for the official build, and the rest of Motorola's products through the balance of this quarter and year. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.